Well, a lot of receiver news. The most important one right now, Rashee Rice has accepted a suspension of 6 games to start the season. It will begin in week 1. This a result of a personal conduct violation stemming from 2 felony counts that he ended up being sentenced for 30 days of jail. He'll eventually serve that sentence, but for now, a 6-game suspension for Rashee Rice. Chris Godwin, some good news for the Bucs. He did pass his physical. He has been removed from the physically unable to perform list. Him, by the way, and Tristan Wirfs, making them eligible to return to practice, potentially play in week 1 against the Falcons. The team is optimistic at this point. We'll see if Godwin can get back on the field for that week 1 game. And more wide receiver news. The banged-up 49ers wide receivers group getting a little bit of help in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He was cut a day earlier by the Seattle Seahawks, so now MVS landing with the 49ers, a team, by the way, that only has 2 healthy wide receivers in Ricky Pearsall and Sky Moore. So MVS has the chance to step in right away and make an impact for his new team. Now let's get away from those wide receivers. We can talk about some defense for once. Kyle Hamilton agreeing to a monster extension. He'll get $100.4 million over 4 years. The Ravens making the decision to do this ahead of his 4th season. So they are getting ahead of this one. They know they love Hamilton. They don't want to wait around. They're getting this deal done. We know that Eric DeCosta has a lot of deals to do in Baltimore, this being the first domino to fall among those transactions.
Yeah, Ravens GM Eric DeCosta had a busy offseason making sure Baltimore took care of its own. Beyond Hamilton, Derrick Henry, Ronnie Stanley, Rashad Bateman all got raises. Now you got Lamar Jackson and Tyler Linderbaum, current candidates for new deals. DeCosta spoke today on the team's philosophy on keeping their championship window open.
I hate that idea of just a closed window. Being a GM on a closed window team gives me anxiety, and I don't want to be that GM. We're probably going to have to kind of recalibrate and say we got to nail these draft picks. And we need these younger players to really be good because we can't sign every single guy back. It is a challenge, and it does, keep me awake at night. I feel really, really good about this team, but I want to feel as good about the 2027 team and the 2030 team as I feel about this team.
Jeff, every GM says it. Not many can do it at DeCosta's level. He's been with this franchise since 1996. How has he been able to keep this Super Bowl window ajar?
Well, smart decisions in addition to those long-term extensions of keeping guys around. We saw it with Derrick Henry. They needed some way to add some offensive firepower last year, so they went out and did that. That's not necessarily DeCosta's recipe for success. He does, as he mentioned, believe in keeping the talent that he drafts, but he's also willing to plug and play with different stars. And he did that last year. And seemingly, by the way, I know we talk about the Ravens not being able to get over the hump of the Super Bowl, but from a roster construction standpoint, it does at the very least feel like this is a championship caliber roster year in and year out. Now DeCosta hoping that eventually they can get over that hump.
Draft and develop, it's what they do in Baltimore. 61% of Ravens players from the 2024 season were drafted by Baltimore. That's the highest percentage in the NFL. Next on NFL Live, it didn't quite go as planned for C.J. Stroud and the Texans last season heading into year 3. Are there enough pieces around Stroud to bounce back? Lewis is not concerned. Hear why. Next. Receiver Rashee Rice has been suspended 6 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy, that according to Adam Schefter. The suspension follows Rice's guilty plea to 2 third-degree felony charges related to a March 2024 car crash in his native Dallas. For more on this story, we welcome in Chiefs reporter Nate Taylor from Arrowhead. Nate, this decision voids what was a scheduled hearing for Rice at the end of September. What made Rice agree to the suspension now?
The reason why Rashee Rice agreed to it now is because he got mostly what he was looking for, the ability to do the suspension at the start of the season, and for the fact that it's not 8 games, 10 games, initially what the NFL was hoping to get before having to schedule that disciplinary hearing in New York City on September 30th. Now, for Rashee, another reason why he chose to accept the suspension today is he's still coming off a knee injury, right? And so this still gives him 6 more weeks to prepare his body to play NFL games. And for the Chiefs specifically, it now gives them an understanding of what they're going to be having to do the first 6 weeks of the season without their number 1 receiver. Most notably, that involves Patrick Mahomes, of course, Andy Reid, the head coach, and Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator. So although it's a 6-week suspension, still a third of the year for Rashee Rice, he understands that he will be playing the most important games for the Chiefs moving forward once his suspension clears, and he can sort of move forward into the next chapter of his NFL career.
Yeah, Rice was injured late September last year against the Chargers. Coincidentally, that's the season opener amongst the games he'll miss. Nate, that's in Sao Paulo in 9 days. Without Rice, what's Kansas City saying they'll do to adjust their game plan ahead of Week 1?
Yeah, one of the more interesting things that we learned a few days ago is that Matt Nagy said the Chiefs had 2 plans for their offense, right? One that involved Rashee Rice on day 1 and one that didn't involve him. Now we know the Chiefs are operating in option B. And so what that means is Patrick Mahomes is going to have to obviously trust his new offensive line, most notably Josh Simmons at left tackle, Kizzy Suamataia at left guard, and that means that involves having a more balanced approach, right? Rashee Rice was going to be the Chiefs and might still be the Chiefs' most talented, most targeted receiver in the regular season, but he's going to have to use new receivers like Tyquan Thornton. He still has Juju Smith-Schuster. They're going to have to hit the deep ball with Xavier Worthy, the fastest man on the team. And, of course, now because you don't have Rashee Rice, it now means that in 3rd and long, Patrick Mahomes might still be looking for Travis Kelce, where he would normally give a look to maybe Rashee Rice. So although you don't have their best receiver, the Chiefs still feel confident they have a collection of talented skill makers around them. And it really comes down to Mahomes feeling comfortable in Sao Paulo because of the new offensive line and because everyone else on the roster is healthy going into Week 1.
Yeah, personally intrigued to see how they utilize that speed with just Thornton and Worthy. Those 2 guys can fly. Rice's first game eligible to be back October 19th at home at that stadium against the Raiders. Nate, thank you. New on NFL Live, Colts GM Chris Ballard today on Anthony Richards' future with the team.
It's easy to say, okay, he's done, and I don't agree. I've said this numerous times. I do not agree with that. I think overcoming challenges and obstacles along the way are good for anybody. I do. I'm proud of Anthony, of where he's at, how far he's come. He's come miles. There's a lot of value in sitting behind a guy that's a professional and watching and learning and growing and working on the things you need to work on without the same pressure of being the starter.
Lewis, GM Chris Ballard has been candid through this whole process. Richardson just 23. Do you think the QB's time in Indy is done?
Yeah, I do. Because look, you don't draft a guy 4th overall and then have him have an open competition with a guy who also was a high first-round draft pick and wasn't able to cut it at the original team that he was drafted by, that being Daniel Jones in New York, and then just say, well, you know what, it's beneficial to him to sit behind Daniel Jones and learn how to be, you heard the word they used, professional. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what do you mean learn how to be professional? He was drafted 4th overall. You knew that there were going to be some bumps in the road. This will be an interesting one. Look, I still believe in the kid. I just don't think it's going to happen in Indianapolis, but we'll see.
Time to read and react to more news around the NFL, starting in New Orleans, where the Saints